Hello everybody, this is Chris with OverclockersClub. Today we have a very unusual computer case, and yes, there is a computer case inside this case. So this is not your usual way to receive your computer case. It's actually a case within this really nice flight case. So you got handles pretty much all the way around. You got this nice pull-up handle, so you can roll this thing around if you want. As you can see, it is a limited edition, so it looks like 230 are made, and this is number 116. And this is a special limited edition promotional version of this case. You're not going to really find any of these out in the wild, but what you will find is what's inside this black case. So let's take a look. I think I said it has handles on all four sides. It actually has handles on three sides. So let's see what is inside. Oh, very nice. All right. Thank you for being one of our earliest supporters. It means a lot. You're one of only 230 customers that received the Luxe Flight Edition of this case. Wow, very nice. All right. Set that up there. And let's see. A little slippery in the bag. Okay, we'll skip past the part of me struggling to get it out of the packing there. All right, so it's got a nice little detent handle here so that you can easily lift it up. And let me make a little room here. And it looks like we've got an additional panel there that's stored. Looks like a little, maybe a user guide. I don't think there's anything else in there. It doesn't look like it. Okay, so let me get this off the table so you can get the case up here and check out the details. All right, there it is. So if you haven't guessed by now, this is actually a mini ITX case. It is very small and compact and fairly lightweight. This particular one has the power supply included. You can get this with or without a power supply. Okay, let's start by looking at the exterior surface finish. In fact, let me put this on the little turntable. There we go. That makes it a lot easier to spin the case around. Okay, so I already talked about the little handle here. It has a nice detent so that it can be flush with the surface, and then when you want to use it, you just push down and it pops right up. And again, this has a very nice finish to it. It's not glossy. It's almost like a matte type of finish, but it looks pretty consistent all the way around. And let's take a quick look at, let me flip this up so you can see the top. Again, so there's the handle. You can see you push it in, a little detent, push it down, and it locks. All right, let's flip it around and look at the bottom. So it's sort of open down there. In fact, let me just move the camera up close. So there's what the bottom of the case looks like. You can see it's pretty much open, and looks like there's a box of probably some mounting hardware in there, so we'll have to get the thing open so we can see it. And I've got it flipped back up. So there's the top, and this is the front of the case. So we've got the power button in the middle. It looks like it's lighted. We've got dual USB ports here. We've got another USB off to the side, and then it looks like a headphone jack right there. So it's fairly minimalistic, but that's just fine. And then up at the top, there's this little button you push. Again, it's a little detent. But when it comes out a little bit, you can grab it and pull it out the rest of the way. And these are usually to like rest your headphones on or hang your headphones on. And then when you're done, pop it back in there and away you go. We've got one on either side. And we'll go ahead and take a quick look at the inside. Now the back of the case, you can see it's sort of open here. And here's the power switch. There's your socket for your power plug. And I think you just pull, yeah, those come right off. So we got little ball and socket detents here to hold the panels on. And it looks like we've got some filter panels that very conveniently and very easily slide right in and out. And there's a little magnet along the bottom here, actually a little magnetic strip that holds this in place. You can see when you slide it in to keep it from moving around, the magnet holds it in place. So that's a great idea. All right. So my guess is the rest of these panels pop off the same way. Let's see. Yeah, there's a little recess here that you can get your fingers under. Probably want to make sure you pull it straight off. You don't want to catch that headphone rest and bend up the opening for the panel there. So same type of filter panel here with the magnetic strip there to hold it in place, but that's awful easy to remove and clean. And let's just go ahead and get all the panels off. And this one here, okay, so this front panel here is actually, looks like it's screwed on, so it does not pop off. But we can get the other side here off carefully. And there you can see a power supply, which again, you can get this with or without the power supply. So you can use your own, or you can just order it for convenience. It's already installed. So it's a pretty good idea here to get familiar with the little user guide here. There's not a lot to it, so you can go through this fairly quickly. And I'll post the specs on a slide so you can see them a little better than trying to read it here while I hold it. But basically you can get this in black or white too. I've got the white one. But the guide here is pretty good. It's pretty straightforward as far as showing you how the panels come off and how to build your system. So do not lose this. Do not throw it away. Make sure you go through it. And the other thing I want to point out is this is a mini ITX case. My mini ITX motherboard has not arrived, and I'm not sure when it will arrive. So for now, I may make this like a two-part review. And the first part being, we'll go over the case and the features and functionality. And if my motherboard shows up in a reasonable amount of time, we'll make a second video and do a little testing. So the hardware box, let me get that out of here. This is a, like, instead of a desiccant bag, this is a paper that absorbs moisture to keep any condensation during shipment out. Alright, so here is one little hardware box. It's a little stubborn, and I think, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So let's see what's in here. Okay, so pretty simple. Power cord. It looks like a headphone adapter. And we've got some zip ties, some slot covers, and some miscellaneous fasteners there for, of course, installing your motherboard. So we'll put this off to the side for the moment. And let's see, does this come off? That may not come off. So we've got our power connectors coming off of the power supply. Actually, I remember looking at the manual earlier, and this top does come off, but it's just screwed on. So I'll remove that a little later. All right, so we've got some cables there, and it looks like there's another set right here. So let me get the tie off. Actually, I'll just leave that connected. Okay, so here are the other connectors for the motherboard. So you have your usual 24-pin connector that goes to the motherboard. We've got 2 SATA connectors and 1 Molex connector. And then your CPU, we've got the dual 4-pin connectors for power to the motherboard for the CPU. And then these are for your graphics cards. So we have 2 6+2 connectors. Of course, that's all you need because you can only get 1 graphics card in here. And then we have an additional 6+2 that's sort of by itself. So you've got another connector there. Okay, and the motherboard will sit against this back plane here. You can see little standoffs for it. And this is all open for access to the back of the motherboard. And then your I/O panel will face down. That's why this is actually, there's a nice offset here, because you have to have room to get your cables and your other peripherals plugged in to the motherboard. So that's what this opening back here is for. And the front panel does come off, although this one has screws. So there are two more, so there are 4 per side. And that just comes right off. And then you can see there's a filter panel there right behind it. And this particular edition comes with an alternate front mesh panel. This one is gold, or sort of a coppery gold color, I guess you could call it. But this one here just pops right out, and you can pop this one back in, and then the front goes on like that. So the effect isn't quite as dramatic as it might be with a black finish case, but you do have an alternate panel there if you want to do the swap. Okay, so there's what it looks like with the entire front section opened up. And on a small case like this, it's really important to get every angle opened up there for your system build. And the top is also screwed on. There's a screw here and here. They're larger than these smaller screws, so you might think these smaller screws are what you take out, but you don't, because those actually hold the detents in. So you want to take out the larger screws, and when you get all 4 out, which I already did, the top panel lifts off completely, and then you can see it has a little dust cover or dust filter there built in. And like the other panels, this one here is held in with a magnetic perimeter. So that is how you remove it. And looking inside the hardware box, there's the main power cable. There's a little 2-in-1 adapter here for your headphone, microphone connections. A couple of block-off plates for some PCIe slots, and let's see, some other fasteners and rubber grommets for your hard drive installation, and some tie wraps. And that's it, and that's really all you need. Okay, so let's say you check off the box to get the optional power supply included. So you might wonder what you get. Well, you get the smaller form factor power supply, but it is rated at 700 watts. You can see the specifications right there, and it is an iBuyPower unit, or a unit made by or made for iBuyPower. And it does have one additional, it's a little hard to see in there. There is one extra spot for a 6-pin cable if you need to add it, although most likely you won't. And you can completely remove this, although there really isn't a reason to, but cable ties in here, I really don't want to cut them because then the cables are all loose and they have it all nicely together in there, but this would not be too hard to remove. There are 4 screws there that go in here and here, and then there's a little bracket that goes on the back side that sort of helps hide the cables, but it's really easy to remove if you need to. Alright, so I'm starting the system build. One thing that's nice here is this side bracket. You take out 2 screws here and 2 screws at the bottom, and this little bracket is hinged, so that's nice. So you swing this out of the way. You can put a couple of fans in there if you're going to go with an air cooler to help move some air through the case, or for what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put a liquid cooler up here, the H100i Pro from Corsair, in here and see how easily it fits. Again, there's not a lot of room in here, but that's the whole point of this case, to keep things compact. Now this mini ITX board, I can also say that when you're installing it, you really want to get your cables sort of plugged in before you get the board installed, because again, there's not a lot of room to work. So you get these all plugged in, and then you can get the board installed. Okay, so this is the I/O panel, and this is actually at the bottom of the case, and there's a panel here that's off, so it's a little disorienting here. But anyway, so your I/O is down here. Typically, the cables that connect these to the motherboard are inside the case, but since this case configuration is a little different, we'll flip this up on end so you can see what's going on. So here's the actual I/O panel for the motherboard. If you remember, the motherboard is flipped to where the I/O panel is down, and the way they do this, for example, here's your main USB 3.0 connector. So this should be fished up through the case here, and then it connects to the motherboard. And then here's your HD audio. This is your front panel USB, I think. Just says front panel. And then this connector right here, I actually connected it. So this is your USB type C connector, and usually it's the main header that goes to the motherboard, but in this situation they've just given you a regular connector that plugs into the what would be the rear of the motherboard. That's usually external to the case, and then that connection for your USB-C goes right over here to the panel. So it's sort of a shortcut. And the H100i Pro from Corsair is installed. Again, this hinge section makes it very nice. Of course, you got to be a little creative and get your tubing to bend right and get it all tucked in there. The next thing here, I'll get the graphics card installed. All right, time to get the graphics card in there. This is a GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. And this should pop right in. There we go. Okay. So that is in position. We'll get a couple of the hold down screws in there. And you can see there's plenty of room. Let me get this flipped around here so you can see. There's plenty of room up here for a taller graphics card. So the overall length of this card is about 270 millimeters, and then from the end of the card there to the top of the case you could go probably another 65 millimeters on top of that. Now one of the fans here you can see is completely open. There's nothing obstructing it or starving it for air. Now there's a second fan back here on this particular graphics card, a little hard to see. And it looks like it's partially blocked, and it sort of is, but the panel here is perforated so you can get some air moving through there. Okay, everything is running. It is super quiet. I don't know if any of you picked up, I had the fans on the wrong side because I took the cooler off of another build. And I actually decided to put them on this side of the bracket because when I tried to close it, there's a lot going on in here and things were getting into the fans. So if you build this with a liquid cooler, you probably want to put the fans in that orientation. As far as hard drive space goes, we've got a position here and here for a 2.5-inch solid state drive. So you've got 2 of those, and you can actually get a 3.5-inch drive inside this little cage right here. So here's an old hard drive, so you can see it just sort of fits in that pocket and slides in there like that, and then there's some holes there that you line up. Actually, I have this in backwards. It needs to go in like that. There we go. And then you line the holes up, you can see, and install the mounting screws, and that's where you put the 3.5-inch drive. As far as all-in-one coolers or radiators for the side there, you can go from a 120, 240, 140, or 280 up to 35 millimeters thick on the radiator. Top cooling, you'll see there are two mounting provisions up here for a couple of 80 millimeter cooling fans, which might not be a bad idea if you stress your graphics card and you want to help get a little more heat out. A couple of fans up there would definitely not hurt. Another thing I do like, the intake for your power supply here is not right up against the cover, so we've got a little bit of dead space there between the intake and where the cover would be, which helps reduce restriction on your power supply. Obviously your graphics card here, we're unrestricted, so we've got lots of room to pull in fresh air, and your radiator here will be pulling fresh air in directly from this side of the case. Over here we have the exhaust for the power supply, and this is all open over here for exhaust, so your fans here will pull air in from the outside and most likely push most of it out from the side. And we'll get the front cover on here. Remember, it actually has some little screws that hold it in position, and the top cover has some screws also. So we'll get these little screws here in there first. And all the covers are back on. I'm actually stress testing the system right now using Ada64. The CPU is an i5-10400. Graphics card, again, is a 3070 Ti. We're holding at about 69 to 70 degrees Celsius on the graphics card, and the CPU is holding at about 51 degrees Celsius. We're not doing any real overclock with the CPU. It's running at about 4 gigahertz, so it's not much in the way of a stressful overclock. And the fan speed on the graphics card is 71%. Now I'll pull out the thermal camera and see what things look like. Alright, looking at the case with the thermal camera, the colors just show a temperature differential, not necessarily an absolute temperature. So right there is the cold spot on this side. This is the intake for the power supply. So you can see it warms up when we get closer to the graphics card, which is right behind that panel there. Looking at the front, again, this is where you can see a lot of heat coming through from the graphics card. You can actually see where the intake fan is there on the graphics card. Looking at the top, again, you can clearly see where the graphics card is located right here on this side. A little more heat. Things cool off as we get over toward this side of the case. And this is the side that has the two fans pulling air in for the intake for the radiator to cool the CPU, so you can definitely see that it's cooler there on the left. And there's the graphics card, again, the hot spot. And there's actually the thermal signature there for the two fans. You can almost see exactly where they are. And then the back of the case, again, we can see a little bit of heat there on the exhaust for the power supply. A little bit of heat coming out of the back side of the radiator for the CPU cooler. We move down, there's a little bit of heat down there at the bottom coming out from the bottom of the case. As far as fan noise is concerned, that really depends on what graphics card and what fans you use over here on your CPU cooler. When things are stressed out to the maximum for the graphics card and the CPU, you know, this is sort of the worst case as far as sound. I don't know that I would be too worried about it though. Small case like this, you're sort of limited on what you can do for limiting your acoustics, but under normal usage things are really pretty quiet. So like I said earlier, the case here is available just by itself in black or white. You're not going to find any of these special editions probably out in the wild, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, retail on this right now, it's normally listing for $129, and that's just the case. And that's without the power supply. However, currently it's on sale for $99.99. Again, that's without the power supply. If you get it with the power supply, the list price is $249 and it's on sale for $199. And again, you can get this in either black or white. They both look great. Now, this can actually be purchased with a complete system build in it already from iBuyPower, so you can check that out at the iBuyPower website. So if you're looking for a very nice little well-ventilated case for your next mini ITX build, a very portable little case, this is definitely one to check out. It certainly won't break your wallet. I would give this the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.